Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's PractiTest webinar series titled Stop Chasing the AI Hype. And we're going to talk about delivering real value in software testing. My name is Noah Segol. I manage the marketing team here in PractiTest. And today's webinar, we have a local today. Joel Montvelisky, our co-founder, Chief Product Officer, will be giving this session with an invitation of what AI in testing and equals value really is. And we'll start with some introduction for those of you who are not familiar with PractiTest, so it's going to be quick. Actually, skip that and we'll go back. So a few words about PractiTest. So we are a QA and test management platform, or you can say, Joel is testing my pace.
No, I'm testing Zoom more than anything else.
Testing Zoom, going backwards. So hi everyone. Those of you, a few quick words about PractiTest for those of you who are not familiar with who we are. I did have a chance to see that some of you are new, and we are very much happy that you've joined us. So we are a QA and test management platform. Okay, this is in title. What does it actually mean? Essentially, that we are the hub, one source of truth of everything related to software testing. So you can provide insights into your team, your leadership, and show the value of what quality really is. And are we good with going live? Yes or no? Joel, now if you can tick. About the company itself, so we are a SaaS solution founded in 2008. So we're not the new cool kid in town. We've been around for quite some time. We have customers in more than 55 countries across multiple verticals. You can see some verticals that we shine in, but we definitely have customers in pretty much any vertical that you can think of. And I always like to say that initially, back in the days in 2008, only ISVs and software companies needed a test management tool. But nowadays, basically any large organization is a software company and need proper testing. And when you understand that you need proper testing, you need PractiTest, or you should consider at least PractiTest. We are mentioned both in the Gartner and in Forrester reports. We'll be happy to link you to some examples. And you can click again in order to provide and be that one hub of testing information, centralized hub. We provide end-to-end modules relating to testing all the way from requirements to the core of our platform, which is testing, obviously, with dedicated modules for test repository and testing execution, and an issue module. So some of our customers use PractiTest as a standalone, but in majority of cases, you probably already are working because of other teams and internal dependencies with other tools such as Jira, ClickUp, or Zoom DevOps, and that's obviously no problem. We integrate with all of them, and I will mention with all of them at once. So if you're working in a complex organization and different teams within the organization are using different tools, that's no problem. You can still centralize everything related to testing. In addition, we're no longer in 2008. Automation has become prominent in many organizations, and when you look on holistic testing results, you also want to incorporate those results. So we integrate with pretty much any automation tools with a robust API library. So I do invite you to go to our website, check out, ask us for a dedicated demo, or play with the system on your own. And that was it for the intro part. I'm going back to Joel for you to introduce yourself a few words, and then we're going to talk about AI and hype.
Okay, I'm gonna go to my slide because at least that I know. Here I am. Okay. So first of all, thank you, Noah, and welcome everyone. I'm actually pretty happy that PractiTest still allows me to do some of these webinars, especially around those that are things that are close to my heart. My name is Joel, as Noah was saying. I'm a tester. I have been doing testing, I think, for a long time. I think it's even more than 26 years because when I started, we're still testing for the Y2K bug way back then. And I've done quite a lot of different jobs in testing, from being a tester, test manager, director, VP of testing. But I've also been a consultant. I've blogged and again, all sorts of different things throughout the years. Some years ago, a number of years ago, I also co-founded PractiTest, and today in PractiTest, my job is that of being Chief Solution Architect, and that basically means that I wear a number of hats. First of all, I talk with many of our customers to understand how they're working, their methodologies, their needs, their wants, their requirements, where they're taking the system, and then we turn that into a product. I also work methodologically speaking with a lot of people, okay, to see how they're testing today, how can they test better. And that is why, again, I love testing and I live testing. And that is why I like speaking about all of these terms. I'm also leading the efforts on the product side on all the stuff that we're doing in practice around QA augmented test management, but I will only talk about that for a bit. And what we're talking today is about something called a hype, or the AI hype that is currently happening. And as I was telling you Noah before, maybe some of you are already in here, I thought I knew what a hype was. I got a feeling of it, but I went and I did some research, and let me go over to my slides, not practice slides. And I wanted to understand what we meant by a hype, and why we're on what is called the hype. It's not us that says that we're on an AI hype. Actually, I first heard of this about Gartner talking about it. But a hype is an exaggerated promotion, people making a lot of noise, mostly generated by claims. And here by claims is people saying that something can be done. Notice that we're not saying whether this something is real or not real. Usually they're a little bit exaggerated as we're talking. But the bottom line is that because there's a lot of noise, people talking a lot of things, there is a disillusionment. There are people who basically thought the system would be able to do something that it's not doing. And that is why we're currently on a hype. And as I mentioned, it's not that I made this up, nor Noah or anyone in practice. It actually comes from Gartner. And if you know who Gartner is, then they're one of the biggest consulting firms out there, analyzing markets and products and tools and technologies. And they identified that whenever there is a new technology, it usually goes into a hype cycle. And this is what the hype cycle looks like, where there is usually an innovation trigger, something big, bombastic. By the way, let's put AI on the side. Maybe you remember when we were used to be working waterfall, and then people started talking about agile, agile, agile. And everyone said, oh, we need to do agile. So there were things where people had an expectation that agile, again, not talking about AI, would actually solve all of our problems, and everyone was doing agile. And if you were doing anything other than agile, then you were not a cool kid on the block. But then with time, we realized that agile didn't really solve our problems, because our problems are not related to how we were developing software, or to the methodology we were using. And then a lot of people expectations actually came to the floor, and they say, what do you care if you're working agile, waterfall, whatever? And with time, we understood how agile actually works. And I think today most of us are sure that working in iterative models, shorter sprints, better ways are actually a better way of working right now. So what a lot of people are saying, I believe it is the case right now, is that there is something similar with AI. People think that it will do everything that it can be done. For some of us, they might be here, some of us might be here, some of us might be here, in the sense that we don't really have an expectation right now. There's too much noise, there's too much people talking around. It's not necessarily that we understand what can be done, what can be done. We don't really know who to believe to. But obviously, the value that we will start getting from AI will go out with time once it actually matures a little bit. But regardless if you think that it's there or not, my theory is that it's there. Let me explain to you why I believe that it's there and what is actually causing this hype. Because the hype doesn't happen for natural reasons. There's actually something that is actually triggering it. And I think that first and foremost, there's quite a lot of general information channels just talking about it. Okay. Go to any news outlet. If you're in the US, it might be CNN, Fox News, New York Times, whatever they're going to be having, anything around it. Translated locally, if you're in the UK, I was in London last week, the BBC will be talking about it. Everyone is talking about AI here, AI there. So we believe that there's quite a lot about AI in there. All the time, if you're working in a company, there are experts, consulting firms, a lot of people doing a lot of money, just coming and telling you how much you should be using AI in order to improve anything and everything that you're actually doing. Internal management dreams. And personally, I've seen these so many times in the last 6 months that it actually hurts where you talk to a tester, test manager, test lead, and it tells, my management is telling us that whatever tool we're using, it has to include AI on it. Why? They don't care, because AI is what's going to save us. And if your tool doesn't have AI, I'm not going to even talk with you about it. Everyone's talking about AI. And I already started listening about people who said, yeah, we started doing AI related projects, and half of them have been let go because they were not providing any value. We'll talk about that later. But there's quite a lot of management pushing for AI without actually understanding why and how. Even sci-fi and our own imaginations. And again, you can be Terminator or Matrix or Star Wars or any other movie about AI. I think that each of us has, I'm not sure if it's a dream or a nightmare of the singularity when it will happen, and Elon Musk or not Elon Musk, but whatever's gonna trigger it. And obviously there's tool vendors like PractiTest, hopefully not PractiTest, but the hype is here because a lot of people are trying to sell stuff to us. And there's an intrinsic problem when you have money involved with information, because there could be a bias issue. So if we're going to be talking about tool vendors and how they're to blame for part of this hype, or at least partially to blame for this hype. And again, I want to say, I am a tool vendor. I've been doing it for years and years and years. And there are responsible tool vendors and there are less responsible tool vendors. And I'm not talking here about everyone. Okay, I want to believe that our company is not doing that, but I've seen too many companies that are doing that. And what is that I mean about is people who are exaggerating the claims about what they can do. And again, it doesn't have to be with AI. Today, there's quite a lot of people, and I will give an example about it. But if you think about it, tool vendors, every time they exaggerate, don't think about software, even about software testing. You will have someone who will tell you that if you buy these, I don't know, kitchen device or appliance, it will help you to cook better. It won't help you to cook better unless you know how to cook. Okay, but they will make it seem like if you buy this oven, you will be able to bake like, I don't know, a baker from France doing baguettes. But if you don't really know how it is, it will be an exaggerated claim. And there's quite a lot of vendors doing that. Fact of the matter is that the AI technology is not mature enough. It's amazing. It's mind-boggling. The stuff that it can do, sometimes it makes us wonder. I was talking with a friend today, and he was saying, hey, I'm using ChatGPT, and I hate the fact that it seems like it reads my mind and it tells me what I want to hear. And again, this guy's in education. He's not even in technology. And I was saying, yeah, of course it is, because it's actually connected to a lot of the other channels that you're using. But having said that, the technology is not mature enough. It might seem mature enough, but it might seem mature enough as a teenager who knows how to speak nicely, but he or she do not know how to behave. So there's quite a lot of way that AI will need to pass in order to be even better. So it is immature. A lot of the claims that we hear from tool vendors come from over-optimistic assumptions. Oh, yes, if you do this, it will increase your speed by this and this percent. The assumptions that they may have in order to come with those numbers are usually over-optimistic. We cannot blame them. They're trying to sell their tools. And mostly they are playing to management wishes. Because if we have marketing people trying to place their tools and advance their tools, the first thing that they will do is not sell what they have, but try to sell that vision, that wishful thinking that management has. Oh, we need to release faster. I'm going to explain to you why using my tool will make you release faster. Oh, we need to find bugs faster. Oh, I'm going to tell you what it does. We need to write better code. I will tell you what it does. Because they're going to be focused on the problem, trying to explain to you why it is the best thing under the sun for that. Just to give you an example, and again, I'm not saying that all of the tools are, but let's talk about a couple of tools that I've seen in the last year or so that claim to have what they call no-code automation. And again, just like on a magic trick, there is something to it, but there's usually a trick to it. And I think that I'm not saying don't use tools that claim to have no-code automation. I say understand what they're going to be giving you. And again, the second part of the session, I'm going to be talking about how to do that, but make sure that you enter that relationship with your eyes open. Why? Because it is true that LLMs today can generate scripts. And I've seen it done. Again, they can generate any piece of code. Okay. Uh, in PractiTest, part of our developers are using all different sorts of LLMs and AI modules in order to generate code. And it does it, but it doesn't really generate efficient code. Usually, if you examine a script generated by LLM, it's very long, it's very inefficient. It's I was reading a comment of someone saying, "Have you ever tried to debug code written by an LLM? Have you ever tried to review code written by an LLM?" And they say that it's the most frustrating thing in the world because it's long and it jumps all over the place and it's not written intelligently enough and the objects are not defined well enough. Yeah, again, it does it, but not every code is good code, and the code that the LLM is writing, it's not necessarily a good and efficient code because it's not efficient, because it's very large, then it becomes very, very fragile. I think that the main thing that you can see when people start working with no-code automation projects, and again, they leave them as is. I'm not saying you use it as a start of your project and then you go into the code and you improve it and stuff like that. If you use it as is, it becomes very fragile, and so very quick you start getting false negatives. You start seeing tests that failed where it's not necessarily that failed, but because it was so fragile, some of the initial statuses didn't work, the AI switched a little bit, they're not able to run correctly. And so instead of validating the software using the test cases, you're validating the test cases because you never know what actually worked or didn't work. And at the end, it takes, in addition to that being very, very fragile, because it's very inefficient, it also takes a lot of time to run. Again, I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying that it looks very good on POCs. On the maturity level of the technology today and some of the tools how they're doing it, I think that they look very good on POCs, but if you're going to apply it as is and just say, I'm going to trust all my automation on these no-code automation approaches or tools, you might end up not getting the value that you're looking for. Again, I'm not saying that in 6 months from now or 6 years from now we won't do it. I'm saying today because of everything that I mentioned about the hype. We're trying to sell something that we're not there yet, the technology is not mature enough, and there are quite a lot of assumptions that might not be really there. Okay, so I'm just saying keep your eyes open. Now, does it mean that all AI is totally useless? Of course not. Okay, it's hilarious, it's outrageous to think that. AI is a great when you have a well-structured task. For example, I know that we use it internally. If you have like a text, you can actually use it in order to summarize it. If it can give you ideas, again, we'll talk about that, but it doesn't really work for everything that we're doing. And yet, it will get better with time. And I think that we need to keep that into account. What AI is, it's an amazing force multiplier. Okay, and again, if you've been here long enough, I was around for the computer revolution. I was in high school. I remember getting my first Commodore 64 and then Commodore 128, and I remember my friends getting their first Macintosh. We didn't really understand how computers were going to revolutionize the world, but it's obvious that computers revolutionized the world because a lot of different people are able to do a lot of things that they were not able to do earlier. And so it is the same with AI. Now, it is a force multiplier. What is one of the conditions of a force multiplier? A force multiplier is not good or bad in itself. It just multiplies whatever you're doing. So if you're doing something good, it will multiply number of times better. If you're doing something bad, it will also multiply it, and so you will be doing something worse on a bigger scale. So we need to understand that it's not a solution, it's only a tool. And with that in mind, we need to understand how to approach these AI modules in order to generate value. Now, there's quite a lot of areas where we can see value on AI, and I'm talking here about AI applied to testing. Okay, I'm not talking here about AI applied to teaching my kids how to solve math problems. First case that I want to bring here, and again, there are plenty, I'm just going to talk about 3 of them, is AI around test creation. Okay, and by the way, what we have here, the guy on the right, he's called Freddie. One of my new best friends, Freddie, is AI's PractiTest AI mascot, okay, and he is our AI assistant in that case. But in any case, I'm talking to you here about a feature that PractiTest already has. There are other tools that have it, but we talk with customers and they really love it. What we can do with AI today is we can review user stories, we can review documents, we can review requirements, any format you want to, and we can then generate test cases based on that. We generate test cases in multiple formats if you want to. Hey, I want a scripted test. I want a Gherkin-based test. As I mentioned, you can take the documents, in theory at least, and generate testing scripts. Whether they're good or bad, that's another question. You can generate test cases, for example, that will include different methodologies or approaches. I can tell my system, hey, you know what? I want you to include positive and negative scenarios or border cases, or oh, I have to work with internationalization and make sure that it works with all the languages, or write a test in Japanese if you want to. LLM models are great for that. And if you have, for example, international teams and you want to give them on their own languages, we have a number of customers who work in Japanese, then it's very, very good because it can take that user story and write a set of test cases in English and then the same copy in Japanese if you want to. It's excellent for generated sample and test data. I want password examples, I want username examples, I want this type of data, that type of data. LLM systems today will be great about that. And first and foremost, I think that it's great to create complete draft of test cases, okay? And this is something that I tell all of our customers using our AI augmented test management. In this case, it's called the step generator. It's amazing for generating your test drafts. You can continue using the LLM model in order to fine-tune your test case, but they will still require a human to fine-tune and complete your process. You shouldn't trust them as it is. And by the way, here we're actually switching over to a topic called responsible AI. And the idea of responsible AI means that it's not only about using AI, it's about how to know how to use AI. And in that case, it should be human-centric AI in the sense that AI will augment what you're doing. It won't replace you in doing that, okay? Not now, I think not for the foreseeable future. And so it is part of the things that you need to be working in tandem with the AI. So one great example, test creation. Another example, large data analysis, when you have quite a lot of results or tests or whatever. So AI will be able to, again, don't think about results. It can go over large sets of requirements and provide you testing insights. Oh, these areas should be tested more, this area should be tested less. This area has a lot of changes. If you use an LLM right enough for that, then it will be able to provide that type of analysis. Obviously, when you look into test runs and test results, it's great at looking for patterns. For example, there's quite a lot of errors around this area or this area of the product. Stuff that if you go over all those results manually, you might be able to get into that. But AI is great at actually looking into that. It will summarize stuff and generate reports. As I mentioned, if you have a lot of issues and a lot of runs, it will be able to create that. But the part that I like the most is it's very good at creating charts and graphs. If you need to summarize a lot of data and generate statistics, then most AI models will be actually pretty good at that. So it will help you quite a lot when you have large data analysis, and that is something you can do today, okay? The last point that I want to talk about, and again, just as an example, there are plenty, obviously didn't talk about all of them, is something that I like to call result-driven value analysis. And again, this is something that we also have in PractiTest, but I made a point not to show this as a demo. But what I want to talk about is, for example, let's imagine for a second that you have a large test repository. And I'm not talking about a huge one. I'm not talking here about 500,000 test cases or 1,200,000 test cases. And I'm talking, these are examples of people working with practice, but even if you have 50,000 test cases, even if you have 20,000 test cases, can we actually go into the system and analyze when those test cases run and actually try to look for execution patterns? Can we use those patterns in order to tell you which of your 20,000 test cases, which are the 500 that are providing better results? And now, what's a better result? A better result is finding bugs. A better result is finding variations in your execution. It's actually finding places where your test case sometimes pass and fail. So that kind of things, those type of analysis can actually help you look into your test repository and basically understand which test cases should be run based on this analysis, plus based on the context of your project. Oh, these are the areas that are currently being modified. These are the test cases around those areas that give you the best results. Go ahead and run these ones instead of running the others. In addition to that, if you talk about maintenance, and again, for many of our customers and test managers, they understand that their repositories are huge and they want to reduce them. So we can help you to look into those test cases that should be either improved or retired. Because if I know that I have 200 test cases around one area, show me which are the 50 test cases that are providing the lowest results. I will review them. Maybe I will decide to retire them because they're obsolete or I have overlaps or stuff like that. So these are examples of areas where the idea is that AI can be used in order to generate real value. Okay, and you see it's different approaches. Not necessarily everything has to be around how to run a script or doing automatically. Now, I think that the most interesting part here is that when we talk with many of our customers, and again, some of them have their own AI projects, we won't tell them to use practice, but a lot of them are already implementing AI projects on their own. Most of them have an approach that they follow, and I try to synthesize here that approach. And in essence, it is think, test, tweak, repeat. Okay, they need to understand, then they need to check what they're doing. Once they decide, they need to continue working with that and tweak it, and then repeat the whole process of thinking again. Now, how does it look in practice? I think that most of them start, first of all, by understanding the real challenges. And it may sound trivial, but if you go to a hardware store, I'm a guy, I love tools. And if I see that they have this incredible drill, then I'm going to thinking about all the holes that I need to open on my walls, and I'm going to call my wife and tell her, "Oh, you wanted to hang all these pictures in there and all this home repair stuff." Now, because I want to buy the drill, then I'm going to be thinking about all those projects that I want to do. But in real life, it should be the other way around. It should be, let's think about which challenges we have, and then let's analyze what tools we actually need and what projects do we need to start. So start by analyzing which are your current real challenges. Look for real pain points. Look for places where you have inefficiencies, what you should be doing better. Look for places where you have bottlenecks. They're coming and saying, hey, you know what? It takes you too much time to translate the results of your test into bugs that the developers can actually go ahead and fix. Look for tasks that are fully repetitive. Try to look for places where it really hurts, and not necessarily someone calls and tells you, oh, I have a great tool that knows how to run test cases automatically for you. You don't need to write a single line of code. Oh, I want to buy you. No. Try to understand what do you need, and then try to be challenge oriented. Okay? Don't start by solving issues that are not really issues. Try to look for points that require your attention and then start to solve them. Why is this important? Because at the end of the day, we want to generate value. Okay, I know many of our managers, they just want to see AI somewhere in one of the lines because their managers are telling them so. All good and fine, you will find enough areas that will require your attention. So first of all, start by looking at your challenges. Once you have a list of challenges, not necessarily you will treat the first one. Why? Because you need to start, try, and then look for what solutions are there. The idea is that you need to have one on top of the other. So investigate the tools, try to go over the knowledge that are in there. There are plenty of people doing webinars, writing articles. There are obviously tool vendors that are showing their stuff in there. So you need to put yourself out there and understand what is available and what are people doing. Now, again, many vendors will exaggerate, but that doesn't mean there's not a kernel of truth into what they're doing. So look for their solutions, try to distill down all of the mumbo jumbo, and try to understand, okay, so here's the value that they have. Putting all the exaggerations aside, there might be some vendors that do have tools or solutions that really match what you're doing. Now, one of the things that I try to tell people to do the most is not necessarily not to reinvent the wheel, but maybe look for people who invented wheels that are closer to your wheels and use their knowledge for that. So a lot of times I suggest to people to go and talk to the development department, support, customer success, even sales department, product management, how are they using AI? And get ideas from what they're already doing. Again, obviously, go to other QA departments, ask them what they're doing. But even if you're the sole QA department and you don't have access to others, you can go to other people and suggest to get ideas from them how they're doing. And one of the things that I think that we don't do enough, you can ask the AI to look for ideas of what AI wants to use. Okay, so I can go into ChatGPT and say, hey, one of my biggest challenges right now is that it takes me a lot of time to report the bugs after I actually run them. What is there an AI tool out there that will help me? You will be amazed because today, again, I don't think that this is the best use of AI, but AI is one of the best ways to navigate and look for solutions on the internet. Okay, so it used to be Google. Now I think that most of the AI models that are already linked to Google and all the search engines will be able to provide you ideas, especially if you give them a lot of the context that is in there. So we said start from where does it hurt, check what's out there, and now let's actually understand if there's a fit between what you need and what's there. So again, map multiple potential AI solutions for each one of your problems. You have a list of the 5 biggest challenges that you have today. How could you approach it using AI for each one of them? You might have one solution, you might have more than one solution. Try to look at how other people are implementing the same tools. Okay, the fact that a tool might work in there, you may get feedback from other teams, from other organizations, how they're already using it in order to solve it. Try to understand if that potential solution actually fits what you have, because the fact that 2 organizations are doing testing doesn't mean that they're doing testing the same way. So you may need to actually see if it actually fits your needs. And as I said, try to turn to for the community if needed. There's quite a lot of people already doing a lot of projects that are AI based and AI oriented. So it makes sense to outsource to the community to understand how can you reuse part of those solutions into what you're doing. Once you think that you found something, that doesn't mean that you're done. There are 2 more things you need to do. The first one is to define your success criteria early on and clearly enough. Why? The moment that we start investing time and efforts on doing something, we grow enamored with that thing. And again, I remember asking people on conference, and you know what? Let's do this mental exercise in here. Virtually raise your hands. So you don't need to raise your hands. Just think about it. If you have kids, okay? How many of you have kids? I have kids. Yeah, I have 3 of them. How many of you have ugly kids? None of my kids are ugly, obviously. Now, the good part, think how many of you have friends who have ugly kids. And every one of us knows friends that have ugly kids. The problem is that each one of us do not see our kids as ugly. The moment that we start investing in something, we actually fall in love with them. If we start investing right now on a solution around AI, we will think that it's really resolving our problems and it's worth the efforts. And there's quite a lot of theories around sunk cost and how much we lose objectivity the moment that we start investing on something. So it's very important for us to define criteria. Okay, we're going to be doing this and this and this project, and we expected to do this and that. So have clearly defined success criteria. Look for tangible things. Look for things that you can measure. Examples. Okay, we want to count the number of tests we execute per sprint. We're applying AI in order to run more test cases, to have more coverage. So know how many test cases you were running on average. Give it some time, check if they went up. Mean time to release user stories. Oh, it used to take us 4 days of testing before we could release the user story. We wanted to go down to 2 days of testing. Make sure that you are looking for different measurements that you can measure and do before and after comparisons, and then make sure that you're counting them. The most important thing is not to have one metric, because metrics are tricky in the sense that the moment that I start measuring something, those metrics magically tend to go up. So for example, if I only had the number of executed test cases per sprint, but I didn't have the number of critical bugs that were caught pre-productions versus escaping defects, I might be running more test cases that are smaller, but I might not be making sure that I'm running the correct test cases. So maybe I'm testing more, but I'm testing worse than I was testing before. So make sure that you have metrics that contrast one another, have sets of metrics, but have those metrics because you're going to be investing time not only in developing the AI, but also in maintaining it. So you want to make sure that you have those metrics in place. And as I was saying, just like this, trying to understand how many projects people are doing and how many projects are going around, I think that around half the people that I talked to, they mentioned that they have, or with the people that I talked about, half their AI projects, they just get started and then get dumped because it was not giving them enough solutions. It was not giving them the correct solution. It took too much to develop. People are not happy with that. The fact that we start a project doesn't mean that we're going to finish it, and we need to have defined criteria on when should we be just dropping those projects and make sure that you have it beforehand. And also important is to pilot before you commit, because even if it sounds correct, even if we have the metrics, then doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. So don't jump blindly. I do believe that AI projects usually take quite a lot of efforts. So look for at least a couple of internal projects that are going to be representative of the complexity of your average project, of the size of your average project, of the technology used by your average project. Make sure that, again, you don't have those very small projects that are used by only early adopters. Yeah, those are the easy ones. Go ahead and look for those projects that are more representative of what your organization is doing and run a pilot on them. Make a POC, make it open, make it public. Again, don't run it on a backdoor. Make sure that everyone knows that you're doing it. Make sure that people can take part of it, because that pilot, it will be your invitation. It will be also the way that you're going to convince people that whatever you're going to be doing next actually has value and it's for their good or bad. And it will also give them the ability of, if they have any concerns. Again, a lot of people are very afraid that AI is going to steal their jobs. This is one good way of making sure that you help people to understand that that's not necessarily the case. And also, do not expect these pilot projects to be a full success, to give you an A+ grade, to be 100% of what you wanted to achieve. It is going to be the first time that you run it. So obviously it's not going to go all shiny and dandy, but it should be good enough to show that it can be done. Most importantly, it should give you a lot of feedback on how to do this later on. Okay, so all of this, what you need to do. And if this wasn't enough, then you need to keep validating and evolving, because AI today, technology is evolving incredibly fast. Okay, if you do not keep up to date, and I mean it, every month, every week, if you can, go ahead and continue reading, go ahead and continue understanding, go ahead and continue making sure that you know what's going on in there, because there's quite a lot of stuff that is changing. You will want to be up to date. Do not fall in love with the solution that you're writing. Even if you're investing on your technology, plan to implement changes as part of the process. Okay, make sure that that solution that you're building, it's modular in the sense that, oh, there's a new engine, we're going to use this new engine. There's a new approach, we're going to be using this new approach, because it's not a question of whether it's going to be evolving, it is evolving. It's not a question of whether it's going to be fast, it is fast. It's not a question of whether what you're using right now will become, again, unusable or don't use it in the future. It will happen. So make sure that you're planning ahead for this. So as I said, think, twist, tweak, repeat. Make sure that you're working on something that should be giving you value. Make sure that you test it, you pilot it, and even after you're done and measuring it, obviously, you will be able to tweak it on and then start again from zero. And those are the type of successful AI projects that I'm seeing all around the industry today. Now, my final thoughts, stuff that I've talked about up to now, but I think that it's important to keep them in mind moving forwards. AI is not magic. It's not a magic pill. It's not a magic cure, but it is a force multiplier. It won't take your job. It might make your job better. It might make your influence in your company way bigger. Now, here's the catch. Someone in your company is going to be using AI in order to make their jobs better. If it's not you, it's going to be the guy sitting next to you. So if someone will take your job, it's not AI, it's going to be the guy sitting next to you who's using AI when you're not using AI. So make sure that you use it as an intelligent force multiplier, but most importantly, make sure that you use it. You should stay skeptical. Don't trust a lot of people, or trust but verify, but continue being curious. The fact that today systems are not able to do what everyone's claiming they're doing doesn't mean that tomorrow or 6 months from now they won't be able to do it. I am amazed by stuff that I'm seeing today that was not possible a year ago or 2 years ago. So we need to keep curious, but we need to keep, again, skeptical, but also optimistic in that sense. Talk to people, talk to your peers, talk to your counterparts, talk to as many people as possible, because a lot of knowledge is very hard to come up to or to come up with. So a lot of that comes from experience, and talk to people is always fun and good. And even if you have something that is working today, never stop improving it, because even if you're doing something today, given the fact that the technology will change, the technology will improve. So what you're doing today will be useless 6 months from now or a year from now. And I'm not saying that that is reason not to invest. That is reason to invest intelligently. As I mentioned, make sure that solutions that you build today are modularly built, because you will need to switch the parts as you go along. Just make it part of your design. And with that, I'm done. And I want to thank you for, again, listening to me and not dropping off. And if anyone has any questions, comments, stuff they want to share, I will be happy to.